Hi, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about this Featherweight 221 and some of the things that can give us some clues about when it was made. I know for myself, whenever I first got my Featherweight, I thought when I looked up the serial number that the date that was associated with it was the date it was made. And unfortunately, that's not true. These numbers or serial numbers were usually assigned in batches of anywhere from 10,000, 20,000, or whatever whatever quantity that they were planning. But that doesn't mean they all got made that day. So what I find is helpful to me, there's a shop that I like to look at on the internet, and their website address is singer-featherweight.com. When you go to their website, you will find that they have a banner across the top, and if you click on Schoolhouse, it'll take you to a new page. Then if you click on Historical, you'll see another page open, and then you can click on a little tab that says Timeline. And the timeline will open up and show you from the beginning of when the featherweights were made in 1933 all the way forward to when they stopped making them, and it'll show you subtle differences of what was done to the machine over the years. So when we look at that, we can take the serial number and know that, well, the serial number was assigned in this case 1934 for this machine I'm looking up, and we can see the different changes to the body of the machine, as well as different things like the bobbin winder, the bobbin winder tensioner, the bobbin winder post, things like that, and that'll give us more of a clue when it was made. So let's take a look at this one. The person that brought me this machine was concerned that something was wrong with the upper tension, specifically that it does not have a numbered dial. So in reviewing the timeline of the Singer Featherweight, again, I found that this was commissioned, or this number was assigned in November of 1934. And one of the things that initially came to my mind was hearing my grandmother speak about her childhood. She grew up during the Depression. And if you think about history or look up the Great Depression, that occurred or was going on from 1929 to 1939. So 1934 is right there kind of in the middle of that. And I don't know, I just kind of found it fascinating that this was being made. I kind of wondered about who was able to purchase it, because so many people were affected. And to me, from what my grandmother was sharing, things were so limited at that time. I think it would probably have been a big luxury for someone to have this. And it makes me wonder about, all the things that might have been going on during that time period. When I looked at the timeline on the Featherweight, or the singer-featherweight.com website, I also learned that the prefix of this serial number, AD, was assigned to the first featherweights that was manufactured, and that began in 1933. And with the letter A, it says serial number prefixes beginning with letter A were manufactured in Elizabethport, New Jersey. So what's really nice, again, on that website, they're going to tell you some changes and actually show you pictures, so you could look at their picture and look at your machine and go, oh yeah, well, it was maybe not 1934, it was maybe 1935, because this change occurred. So what I did, I typed out some of those notes, and also I'm going to provide a link when I give this back to the owner, so that if they're interested in that kind of history, they can look at it. But one of the first things that I noticed on their timeline is it said that changes made to the featherweight in 1935 included a needle guide at the bottom of the faceplate was changed. And what they're talking about is this particular thread guide right here. It had been bent the other way, but in 1935, for some reason, they decided to refashion it to what this machine has. And then in June of 1935, the bobbin winder tension bracket, which is right here, had been changed. the ones before June of 1935 had a school bell style tension bracket there, and they changed it to this front mounting one. Said by doing that it allowed them to use the same base mold. Now I'm sure there was probably some school bells that made it through after June of 1935, but that's at the time period they were phasing over to this style of a bobbin winder tension bracket. Then in 1936, there were some other tiny little things had happened, one of which was back here on the motor. And I don't know that you'll be able to see it really good. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. They added these little tiny reference numbers to the motor band. And so hers has some little tiny numbers to the motor band, which indicate to me that although the serial number was issued in 1934, by it having these little numbers on this motor band, that it probably was done in 1936 because they had not done that prior. Then as we switch back to the face of the machine, I'll zoom this back out for us. There we go. The bobbin winder wheel was changed from being flat and unmarked to being a cup style. And we can see this one is definitely cupped. The base mold of the machine, they said, was beginning to be modified so that this split underneath the electric terminal was solid. Said it kept the terminal more secure and protected. So hers probably was either still using up prior to when that went in effect, because we can definitely see hers has the slit. In 1936, the foot controller, it says, was changed to a solid Bakelite, which is now the most common type found with old singers. And hers definitely is that. I just don't have it here on the bench to show you. Then as we go on forward into late 1937, it says that the faceplate changed up some. And hers has this beautiful scroll faceplate. And I know sometimes people with machines that were made 1950s or whatever, sometimes they really love these, so they will seek out these beautiful scroll face ones and put them on maybe one that was made much more newer than this one. But this one is original to the machine. It said in 1937 that some changes took place to this beautiful scroll work design. Along the thread guides, it said it went from being shiny chrome to having some scroll work added to match the rest of the faceplate. I'll put this paper in front so that you can see it a little bit. And these are some of those pictures I was telling you about from the website that I mentioned. And where they're talking about in 1937, they actually added a little bit of scroll work to this part of the faceplate. This particular model does not have that little bitty extra etching on the faceplate. And so I know hers is earlier than 1937. Here's where that extra little design was added, 1937. Then, if we turn the machine upside down, another interesting feature, I've taken, well, let's take this cover off the bottom. It just unscrews. We did put a new felt drip pad in here and cleaned all the yucky old grease and lubricants off and have re-lubricated and oiled. Some of the things I probably would have never even considered looking at this machine is the molding of the base. As we said a while ago, and I believe it was 1936, they changed the base so that this was solid to the right. It was solid in here instead of open, and that provided more for protection for this terminal plug where the foot controller and electric cord plugged in. But hers was still this style, so they were either phasing out the ones with that split design into 1936. Hers doesn't have the solid. But what was interesting as well is let's look at some of these other, you know, moldings of the machine. It says in the late, sorry, let's go back here. The original 1933 serial number block inside, under the drip pan, was removed from the mold. So from 1933 up until sometime in 1937, they had this little block that was actually stamped with numbers. But it's just kind of interesting to me that that took place. In the early machines, the serial number was not visible by just turning the machine up. You had to take that drip pan off and it would be stamped right in here. And so I believe it said they actually took that out maybe in hers is 1934 was a serial number commission. So we know between 1933 and 34 they had already moved this over. They didn't take the block out, but they stamped it out here instead. So again, just one of those little nerdy, geeky type things, but kind of curious. And then I'm going to slip this back on real quick. And again, this pretty wool felt oil drip pan, the little felt was purchased from the Featherweight shop. Again, I don't get any kind of commission or pay for mentioning them. I have done business with them over the years just as a customer, and I find them to have great customer service. If I have questions about something, you can send them a message through their website or give them a call, and they will definitely respond to you. As I was turning the machine back up, you may have noticed this light looks different. That is another thing that the customer wanted on this. Those old style light bulbs get really, really hot and you can burn yourself. The Featherweight shop offers LED lights that they know will fit this receptacle, and so we have updated it to having a cooler light. Now with the machine set back up, this kind of addressed her question about, is there something wrong with my tensioner? And it's not. It is original to this machine. In late 1937, the numbered tension dial units were issued with all Featherweights and have continued on as a standard. Said it helped take the guesswork out of tension adjustments. So if somebody really just wanted that numbered tension dial, they can buy parts to convert it over to that. When I discussed the interesting facts about this machine with the person that brought it to me, she was of the notion that I was. She was like, you know, if it's working, okay, let's keep it, and maybe do that later at some point, but right now she just liked it as it was. So I hope you've enjoyed this little look at the Singer Featherweight, and can understand a little better now that just because your serial number says it was made in a certain year, it maybe not was made then, but that's when the commission date was. So from the little findings we've seen over looking at the timeline, I think we can conclude that her machine was probably made sometime between 1934 and 1936. She's still quite a little gem, and I think something to be